All right, good evening, everyone, to the February meeting of the Development Review Committee. We only have one item on the agenda tonight, and that is an update on the Cook School residences, which we've had a couple of meetings on before. So we last met in person at Cook School for in-person meeting where the developers, Will Lieberman, Adam Roberts, gave a presentation on their plans for the school and listened to some community feedback on those plans. We also heard from the city sort of about the redevelopment process as a whole. And over the holidays and these past couple of months, they've taken some time to digest and update their plans to reflect some of that community feedback that they've heard. And so they're back before us this month with an updated presentation about their plans for the school. So just a note on how this meeting will work tonight. We'll let them give the presentation. And if you have any questions, please either type them in the chat or save them till the end of the presentation, where we'll open it up for community members and DRC members to ask questions, and we'll leave it at that. All right, Will, Christina, Adam, please take it away.
Oh, I'm unmuted. Okay, first of all, thank you to everyone for participating in this process. Community development, community building is not easy work, but it's very important work. And I think the final product will be of higher quality because of, I'm certain the final product is going to be of higher quality because of this process. So Cook School residences, it's I believe everyone's been on the call before, so everyone's familiar with where it is. The last meeting in November was really great. We got a lot of information. We've digested that information, kind of talked by our committee and our internal committee of development committee here, and I shouldn't call ownership group, my group, and then we've met with some members of the development committee offline and have addressed a number of the concerns in this presentation and some of the opportunities and some of the really good stuff that's coming about with this. So thank you all very much, and I look forward to going through this. So the agenda, we're going to go through a little introduction, project history, some visioning, and some adjustments that we're making as a result of the visioning. So project team, myself, William Lieberman, Adam Roberts, KMK Contracting is our general contractor that we use for all of our projects, and we have a very close relationship where I get involved with them, and they're seamless in our team. And then Homegrown Studio, which Christina has been amazing. I'm going to sing a bunch of praises for her as we go through this timeline and some other things. So here are some properties that we've renovated through the years. And these are pretty, this is stuff that we've done several years ago. So the first is a house on Michigan. That house looks very similar to the way it does on this picture on the left, and we renovated that over 10 years ago. The next one, there was a fire that damaged the Proper Shoe building, and we renovated that using historic tax credits, both federal and state. Another one is on the bottom left is a small house that was about 160 years old when we did the project, 150, 160. On that left side, there was no foundation underneath there, no footing, no foundation, but no footing. And it still stood there for 120 years, but we took it off, completely renovated the house ground up. And the other is a mixed use commercial building called Empire Hall is what we call it. And you could see through the roof on this one, and we have done substantial renovations. And the two on the left we've sold, and the two on the right we still retain ownership and management of, and they're all both 100% occupied with tenants that add to the vibrancy and security and ingenuity of the Cherokee neighborhood. Christina found this as part of her historic tax credit application. It's really cool. So Cook School was named after the Reverend James Edward Cook. He was the pastor of the St. Louis Antioch Baptist Church. I hope I pronounced that correctly, from 1946 to 61. And then we bought the building from St. Louis Public Schools in 2015. And as part of the sale agreement, we agreed not to do K through 12 education for 100 years without the express written consent of the St. Louis Public Schools. We had two really viable, what I thought were viable school organizations that were interested, and the public schools didn't really respond, and they didn't want to talk about it, and it was difficult. And I thought that would be the highest and best use, with this as a second highest and best use, but now I'm kind of thinking this was a blessing in disguise. And oh, on the bottom there, you can see in that lower area, which were the kindergarten classrooms, how large and grand it is, with all those children there doing Ring Around the Rosie or some fun little game. So project timeline. So prior to this, we arrived that we weren't going to be able to do a school, and started pursuing historic tax credits, but that we were doing with the with Landmarks Association, and they ended up, I passed the baton on to Christina, and she's gotten it to the point where we are now. But our original design was to convert to senior housing, the development site there, and we got a decent amount of pushback from the neighborhood and internalized that. And as we were internalizing that, found out that we had gotten listed on the National Register from Christina getting us across that finish line, or starting point, depending on how you look at it. And then in the spring, summer of last year, we redesigned the plan utilizing market rate apartments, because we were now able to do that because we could get the federal and state historic credit, which is the only way a project like this will happen is with some sort of responsible subsidy. And we got those credits, or we got the credits applied for, and we submitted that application, and we're still negotiating back and forth with the state. So as part of that process, we applied for a zoning variance to go from, schools are not subject to zoning, so they can be in a 1 to 2 family, 1 to 4 family neighborhood, and a lot of times they're just zoned as single family. So in order to move forward, we had to go through the zoning process, and that brought up, some other opportunities for the neighbors to get involved and opine on them and ask some questions. What's going on here, and how are we going to be taken into account? And we had our meeting on November 29th to talk about where we were, where we are, and what the community has concerns with, excitement about, and everything in between. So visioning, community concerns and objectives. Here's what we had from the meeting, that some pictures of ideas that came up, we took down and we took to heart. One point that was made from one of our neighbors on Horton was, each family has their own set of fears for changes. That's human. So I've been doing renovations, development, have been on some boards in the past, in my community and other places. And universally, people are very inquisitive, and sometimes that comes from just curiosity. Sometimes it's fear, sometimes it's excitement, but it's universal and it's normal. So the top comments so far are concerns such as increased traffic on Horton Place, parking on Horton Place, the safety and security of the site, too many units, or are these low-income units? We are no longer pursuing low-income housing tax credits, and these will be market rate for the St. Louis metropolitan area. And for that specific if we were to say neighborhood or area of St. Louis, these units will probably be 50 to 75% above the actual market around there. The neighborhood needs new single family housing. We agree with that. The neighborhood will not benefit. We do not agree with that. We think that the neighborhood will benefit and benefit tremendously. And I think we have a lot of points that will articulate that. So here is the traffic flow as designed by Christina. And in taking into account, we don't want an entrance from Horton Place. The community that was concerned with that. So we are looking at enlarging an existing curb cut on Hamilton. It's about 2/3 of the way between Horton and Bartmer. You can see this our circulation of traffic with the arrows. In here, there is also secondary. You have to have more than one way in and out. So there's a secondary way in and out on Bartmer. And I think I may be jumping the gun a little bit, but I just want to go over this site. So we've got some proposed green space on Bartmer and Hamilton. We've got future infill housing between that green space and visitor parking. And we've got resident parking to the tune of, correct me, Christina, 78 spaces, or how many spaces of resident parking are there?
That's pretty close. It's more than 1-to-1 for bedrooms in the project.
Yeah, which I think the general requirement is 1-to-1 for one parking space per unit. So we've got visitor parking of, it looks like somewhere around 20 spaces. And that might be on the next slide actually. So, but we've got future infill housing on both Bartmer and Hamilton. We've got resident parking. You can see from the top down approach of the, I don't want to say depressed, but the depressed area that has the steps down from the kindergarten, where we have some private terraces and still enough space to have a nice common area. If we could go to the next slide and maybe come back to this. And certainly new landscaping. So addressing traffic concerns, 36 visitor spaces for this development, 71 resident spaces, and 6 ADA resident spaces. The proposed renovation, another point that was brought up was the number of units. We've reduced the number of units to 58. So 76 is almost 30% increase of what's required. 25%.
Well, can you explain what ADA means?
Oh, sorry. Yes. Americans with Disabilities Act. So that ADA parking will be, the building really lends itself well to a development like this because of its size, and also it's built on a hill. So you can enter the building at its lowest level at grade on the west side, where you see the ADA parking entrance. And then on the east side, if you walk up about 7 steps, you're on the second level of the building. So that's a perfect spot for a loading area, for loading in and out when people are moving in and out of the apartments. Can we go to the next slide?
Do you want to address this or next slide?
Oh, how many? Let's address all the questions that come up after we get through the slides, because I think a lot of these will get answered, and then some will be able to pop off of each other or leverage off of each other.
Okay, so next slide.
So there's one other thing is there's private on-site trash. So addressing concerns, main entrance, gated parking, including visitor parking, 36, 71, and 6 spaces. And then there's private on-site trash and recycling in an enclosure on the west side of the property, close to the visitor parking. Safety and security came up quite a bit from our first meeting outside the school back in, I guess it was September of 21. And let's go through these. So new site and exterior building lighting. Just the fact that the building will be lit up with residential units will be amazing. But beyond that, there will be light on the building that will certainly flood the site and our property, but it will bleed on to the adjacent public rights of way. Security cameras for video surveillance, including wider views down surrounding streets. Once again, we're not going to stop the security camera right at the property line. The neighbors will enjoy some of the benefits of surveillance video that are provided. That, from my experience, we get contacted quite a bit when there's an event that occurs and there's an investigation by detectives, and they're generally pretty appreciative of having this resource. All right, electronic access control for parking, building, and units. So the parking will be private, and there will be access to that will be controlled by either an opener in one's car or a key fob. And then to enter the building, that will be electronically controlled by access. So if a key gets lost, that's not an issue. Key card gets lost or stolen, that gets discontinued and reissued. And inside of the actual units, those will be electronic access also. So individuals, if they lose their key, they don't have this major issue that one might have. We're proposing a tenant association that should interface really nicely with the West End Neighborhood Association, and specifically the neighbors on Horton Place and Bartmer, and even maybe to Hamilton. They'll be allocated some resources within the building community from ownership as a seed, and probably ongoing. We are a professional property manager. We manage all of our properties, and our intention is that a property that we renovate and therefore manage will retain and enhance their value to our portfolio long term. Ounce of prevention is a pound of cure in most cases. We will oversee, the tenant association will, opine on different amenities. I mentioned this earlier, being a liaison to the neighborhood, the community, and the specific blocks around it and adjacent. So resident amenities. This is a little bit new to me, and I've seen the gamut, and I was not sold on the idea that some of these make sense, but the more and more investigation I did, and all these nooks and crannies that we have in the building, it lends itself really well to a lot of these. So we have an exercise room, at least one, that will be interior in the building. We'll have Wi-Fi for the tenants to enjoy. There will be interior bike storage. The gymnasium will be retained. 2/3 of the gymnasium, 2/3 to 3/4 of the gymnasium and stage area are now planned to be retained, with that historic theater from the 60s that all schools kind of had that are really cool, will be retained. There will be washers and dryers in most, if not all, units. There will be loft style floor plans throughout, utilizing the best of what the existing classrooms have to offer. The units will be energy efficient it will be energy efficient with smart home technology, programmable thermostats, high efficiency HVAC, water heating. There will be some shared outdoor spaces. We're excited about doing a pickleball court right next to the loading area on the east side of the lot. Okay, the neighborhood needs new single family housing. So phase 2 is 12 to 13 new market rate homes facing Bartmer and Hamilton. If you see where these future infill housings are. And in order for those to happen, we need for this building to be in a presentable condition, because I think it's a pretty obvious. It's obvious to me, and I think to most on this call, I would imagine, that the value proposition of being next to a vacant school building is not that of being next to a vibrant, functioning apartment building.
Well, in addition, Will, just a quick comment that, for the future infill single family housing, rezoning is also a requirement of this particular site.
Thank you for the clarification. Benefits for the community. Okay, so what's in it for me as a neighbor? Well, a vacant building will become secure, occupied, well lit, and with some nice new neighbors. The preservation of the building and architecture will improve the aesthetics as a neighbor as you look at this building from whatever direction you're looking. New sidewalks and repaired public walkways will inherently happen as a result of this construction. Landscaping will be enhanced and added to, and where there are mature trees, they will be pruned and they will be maintained. The building and service will contribute significant tax revenue for the greater community versus where we are now. The occupied building will encourage others to develop and invest in the area. So we're totally open to continuing to host community events. I could only see that getting enhanced with having working facilities and neighbors that are in let's say this tenants organization that are spearheading these efforts versus the other neighbors now are spearheading the efforts, but they'll have a more capable collaborator than what I've been able to do. And I've enjoyed seeing those events. So video surveillance on site and surroundings will only help to secure the neighborhood and will provide an assets to our neighbors. So as you can see from all the parking that we have, there's not going to be a net increase to the parking on public streets. And compared to other uses such as maybe a school or not taking into account all this parking, there would be quite a bit more parking in the neighborhood. So here's an opportunity for high quality, modern renovation while staying in the neighborhood. So let's say that you're ready to shed that house that needs a roof every 20 years, needs the grass to be cut, and you want a simpler life, but you want to stay in the neighborhood, or you want mom to live close by and you don't want her to have that house and you're in the neighborhood and you don't want to do an addition on your house because it's for mom for the finite amount of time that mom or dad's going to be around. So here's an opportunity to have a place for those loved ones to live close to where you are as a neighbor. And just to be clear, we currently do not rely on the city refuse service. And in the future, we will not be relying on the city's refuse service. That's for several reasons. One is the service is not as they're not able to be as responsive as a private service. I can fire a private company and go to the next. And we've elected to do that on a number of other developments. And the benefit to the neighborhood is they don't exactly put more dumpsters out. So those dumpsters that are there currently will still be there for the neighbors that pay for that in their service. So here are some typical interiors that Christina put together. And you can see, I don't know who's all been in the building, but we're utilizing what the building was and enhancing it with, this adaptive reuse. You look at the fenestration of the windows, that's a fancy way of saying how they're divided. And it's all going to be very similar, except the windows will be clear, clean glass, and they will function properly. And there will be beautiful light coming in, and at night there will be beautiful light emitted from the property to make people feel like, wow, there's something there. That's one of the things that, as I go through buildings that I've renovated or down the street, and I look in on a building that was boarded up or had a third floor that was never used, and I see when I see light coming out of these buildings, it's the most gratifying thing. It's one of the reasons I continue to do what I do. Another one where you have this island, this galley type kitchen, and just, these things lend themselves so well to these creative loft style apartments that are so desired. And this idea of living in a space that's energy efficient, the efficiency of size, and then being close to all that the St. Louis metro area has. It's a really special spot. Here's just a rendering of the ground floor. There are specific questions. Perhaps, we can have Christina go through them later, but it just gives you an idea of how things are being parceled off or divided. First floor plan. So when you think about it, if you could just if you could go back to that last plan, when you think about utilization of utilities and the cost of living somewhere, rent is, certainly one of the highest costs, but then your utility consumption is pretty high. The nice thing about a building like this is you've got common walls. So if you're on a corner unit, you have two sides of the outside coming in, where a house, you've got heat or cold coming from the roof and 4 different walls generally. So these lend themselves really well to an energy efficient lifestyle. You look at the bathrooms, they're back to back, and kitchens are back to back to make good use of plumbing walls. And it's unusual for me to have a building that works so well for what we're doing. I've had buildings before where there are these common areas that are so big and they're 25% of the total building. While these hallways will be retained and they're fairly commodious, they're not so commodious that they don't have a value. They truly have a value. There are opportunities to have amenities in these large corridors, and it's just really exciting to see this come to life. So that's the second and third floor. They're pretty much equivalent to one another. And then here's just a nice elevation of the building where, the window divisions of the light are the same as what's there, but visioning these windows being completely transparent and clear, it just makes it look so much different. Obviously, there will be some masonry work done, some painting. We're pursuing maybe some terraces, on the northern elevation. That's all. A lot of these things are subject to Secretary of Interior and State Historic Preservation Office standards. But you see these native grasses, some are native grasses, some I see those are probably tulips there, but we plan on having the landscaping be an integral part of the beauty of the building, because it is a very plain building, and some people call it a brutalist modern building. I've heard it described many ways, but I think if we take care of this building and bring it back to what it was, maybe even enhance some aspects of it from what it was actually originally, we've got a great opportunity here to have a high quality place for the people in the building, and then certainly for the people outside of the building to look at.
Great. Well, thank you very much, Will, for that presentation. I know there's been a few questions in the chat, and it looks like Adam has been answering a few of them. If you do have a question now, I'm going to plan on just sort of going through the chat and seeing and going through the questions there. And if you want to speak, please raise your hand. And if I miss you, feel free to just say, "Hey, Jake, dummy, I have something I want to say." So I will start at the top here. We answered the infill, how much infill for the single residential housing. That was in the presentation, 12 to 13 units planned right now. And I will say that we have had the Development Review Committee has had discussions with Will and his team that for the second phase, which would be after this this building gets done, they would be expected to come back and present to the neighborhood once they have more details for that second phase of housing. So the neighborhood would have a chance again to give input for that second phase once that time comes. So just wanted to make that note. I see a couple of questions here about property management and if there's going to be an on-site management office, and if you could talk a little bit more maybe about your management strategy.
Yeah, so we manage all of our properties internally. And part of the reason for that is if we were to delegate that to someone else, it gets really complicated to understand what's really happening. The fees might be great, the rents could be coming in, the tenants could be fine, but then you might have a bunch of deferred maintenance that occurs that you're not aware of, and you find that out all too late. So I've decided it's better for me to make the investment in having a well-trained internal staff that operates with a long-term approach versus having a hired gun that might have attrition, might have many things happen that are outside of our control. And it's worked really well for me. Our occupancy rate has always been a little higher than the average, and our rents are generally a little higher than the average, and our costs to maintain are certainly higher than the average, but it's all for good, because it's the most efficient way I know to operate.
And are you planning on, I think I saw this question too, are you planning on holding on to the property for a while, or is this once you develop that you're
most of my
sell it?
properties that are rentals I hold on to. I've sold less than a handful of properties in the last 24 years. And the properties that I've sold over the last 24 years have been single family predominantly. And every so often there will be an owner user that wants to buy a commercial property that we'll have, and we've made some deals that way, but we're long-term holders. And by virtue of the federal historic tax requirement, we will be required regardless to hold this building for 5 years of operation. But I don't see that. I see that as a very minimum amount of time. We generally get long-term debt on our properties at the lowest rate possible and kind of just make it operate for us for many years. My first building I ever bought, I still own. I bought it in May of 1999. So in this May, it'll be 24 years since I embarked on this business.
Great. I'm gonna switch back and forth between written questions and people that have their hands raised. So I see Stacy, you have your hand raised.
Hey, how are you? Hello, everyone. A couple of questions. First being, have you contacted or spoken with the fire department? As I work in the fire marshal's office and I see your numbers for the parking, have you met with anyone to consider the turning apparatus radius? You have to make sure that's included, as we have to gain access to your building, since you're not going to be able to give us access directly from the street because it sits so far back. And that's part of.
So I'm sorry, I didn't hear the last part. I interrupted you. Can you say that again?
You have to give us access to your building.
Certainly.
We have to be able to get access. So from all four sides. So when you look at the parking and the numbers that you've come up with, have you considered the factors of the fire department apparatus in that? Secondly, with these number of units, another concern for me is your fire alarm protection systems. Is that going to be completely addressable with smoke detectors in each unit that is addressable and tied into the unit, or will they be standalone?
They would have to be addressed. Currently, there's an addressable system in there, and I don't know how we could ever pass code without an addressable system. And regarding the articulation of the equipment around the property, I would imagine that Christina will be in contact with the fire department. and
Yeah,
municipal-
we've only had a preliminary code review on this project so far with the building department. And the site plan has changed since then. So we'll be working through that with the city and the fire department as we go. So far, we're in the schematic design phase still at the end of that.
Okay, so your parking number is not a definite 70 plus.
Correct.
what
That
those-
is the current design, but yeah, we'll be constantly working back and forth with the city.
And at least on the west side of the property, the loading dock area, that will always be kept open there. So I think that even if the fire department or the city required us to reduce a few spaces, we've got a lot of these areas that we'll be able to move the parking around. But that's a really good point, and I appreciate that. What's your name?
Stacy Elliott.
Great.
Thank you very much, Stacy. I appreciate it.
Okay, I see a question about will there be EV chargers as part of this for parking for anyone that might have an electric vehicle?
Yeah, I renovated a house back in 2021 is when we finished, and we put a charging station there, and I would imagine we'd probably have to have at least 3 to 6 of them here.
Yeah, I mean, with the recent code changes, specifically within single family, because I've experienced this, in each garage there is an electric charging station. So almost 100% positive that would be required per building code for the energy code for a project such as this.
Great. Nathan, I see your hand raised.
Yeah, thanks, Jake. Yeah, my question was really just about kind of your future timeline, assuming that there's no significant changes that need to be made to your plan coming out of this meeting tonight. What do you see as far as the future looks like, as far as starting construction of or renovation of the building itself, completing that, and then after that's done, starting on the housing?
That's a great question, Nathan. I think that we need to finish up the historic tax credit project part of this and get their agreement for us to move forward with a plan. And Christina might be able to opine on that, but it really, I think she's going to go back to it depends. Perhaps by the end of this year. And we had financing commitments together 2 years ago. as everyone here is probably aware, the market has completely changed due to the fight of inflation and an increase of interest rates. So now for a project like this, the interest rate has gone from 4% to 7%. So that's a material amount of money that is out there. So we will have to get through that process and understand where we are with that. But I'm confident we'll still be able to move forward expeditiously. So I would say if we got approval today from this organization, there might be a shovel in the ground in a year.
Okay, thank you. And then how long, once you put a shovel in the ground, what do you see as far as the timeline of completing the renovation and having it ready for tenants to move into?
I think that the school building would probably be somewhere around 18 months. And I would imagine while that project is starting, we would start the subdivision of the lots and pursuing different types of incentives to build the market rate homes.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
All right. Brenda had a question about how many units are in the building total, and if you could also maybe explain the makeup of those units, what type of units you have again.
I'll start with the number of units. It's been reduced from 66 to, is that 58, Christina?
58.
Yes, 58.
Yeah, I was going to say 56 and I'm glad I didn't. So to 58. And the makeup, Christina, what are those currently?
So you're on mute, Christina.
Sorry. I believe it's 16 efficiency units. I need to go back to the full drawing set. But then the rest of it is a combination of studios, 1 bedroom and 2 bedroom.
I don't.
Okay. Oh, my chat window moved.
Be calm.
Just a second. Okay. Lisa is asking, do we have any renderings of the proposed housing, and if they'll be complementary to existing housing on Horton Place?
We don't currently have any renderings. As you mentioned earlier, Jake, there would be another conversation about the houses to be built. And I've seen the new houses have gone up in the neighborhood, and I've seen the houses that Adams built. I've certainly seen the houses that I've built and been part of. And I think that we would have something of high quality, and I'm not going to disparage anybody else's work.
Okay. Oh, this is a good question from Donald Gage. Will the tenants or management be able or allowed to use units as Airbnbs or for private
Absolutely
events?
not.
You had experience with that in the past?
Well, I mean, tenants certainly won't. I don't see the benefit in a community of doing that. It's just, I've got too big of a vested interest in the building to do that. I have done Airbnbs before, and what I've done, it really needs to be a unit that directly faces the street. No common areas, not a situation where somebody can bother somebody else, and this building doesn't lend itself to that.
Got it. See on here that Justin, did you have your hand raised, or did your question
Yes.
get answered?
Yes, I did. Hello, everybody. I appreciate the presentation that you, ladies and gentlemen, have put together. My question is, can you all add a component of solar to this? Since you talked about electrification upgrades in your development, you also talked about code right now, Adam, the state trying to go back to 2009 codes, and our current building performance standard code just says that you just got to have solar hooked. It has to be solar ready. But the Inflation Recovery Act says that a neighborhood such as ours qualifies for community solar. So I was wondering if you all could add that to it, because we live in a community where there's a very high energy burden presence at, and with our neighbors, and looking at what you all have designed. Can that be a possibility? I don't know if that's Adam, Will, or Christina.
Yeah, you know, Justin,
Huh?
Justin, if you asked me this 10 years ago, I'd be like, man, solar just doesn't make sense in St. Louis. And, you know, we just don't get enough sunlight and we don't blah, blah, blah. But with the three things, no, let me finish her. With the three things that you mentioned one of them, there's an incentive there. Two, solar actually works now because that stuff actually works. It absorbs and harnesses a lot more sunlight. Three, there's a 18,000 square foot roof, 17,000, like it's a big roof, and nothing is taller than this roof for hundreds of feet. So this thing, one, it's being done at a better time in terms of the technology that's out there. Two, it's in a better time due to the incentives that are out there. And three, it's a better building than I've ever had for it. So, you know, once you get that good roof on there and you got a new roof underneath it, that asset truly will last for 20 years. And it may even be good for the roof to reduce the amount of sun exposure to it. So I'm actually really excited about this. I purposely did not pursue that because I don't know what that's going to look like. I didn't put that on this presentation because I don't know if it's going to happen, but it's something that I'm really interested in. And I think that there's, you know, at least 3 or 4 good reasons to do it on this one. Sorry, I stopped you, Irv. I just wanted to finish up my thought. I saw you were that architect wanted to get in there and be like, man, you don't know what
All right. Brandy, see your hand raised.
Hello, guys. I just came on. I just got a quick question. So it went from 66 to 58, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
That's correct.
So an 8-unit difference.
Mhm.
Don't see what that would change, but okay. I just came on. So have you all discussed how the trash will go? And I'm only asking that because I'm the one picking up trash.
Yes, if we could go back to that site plan with the trash, please.
So
And then-
Brandy, there'll be trash enclosures on the western side of the property, pretty close to you, but they'll actually be enclosed. It'll continue to be privately serviced. So it's not gonna be City of St. Louis dumpsters. There will be recycling and refuse. And it will be in a nice, clean enclosure that, you know, our tenants will have access to. And the site, you missed a lot here, but the site's going to be fully fenced in and there will be electronic access to it. And
Monique, can you share the site plan, or whoever was sharing that? Could you bring that back up, please? If it was Christina or.
And Brandy, if you want to spend some time after this call or tomorrow, I'd be happy to go through the first part of the presentation with you.
And we can also make the presentation available to anyone who wants it on this call as well.
I can't recall if it was toward the end or the beginning, to be honest, but I can absolutely share full access to this too.
Are you able to share your screen? Do you have the presentation?
Oh, I am so sorry. Do you know this entire time I thought I was sharing the entire screen with you? 1 second, pardon. 1 second, please, pardon.
This is really. There we go.
Sorry, I've been looking at it.
There we go.
I'm so sorry, y'all.
Hey, you're a volunteer. You know, I'm just happy it's working.
So yeah, the trash enclosure would be near the alley, but fenced off, so that, if I'm understanding correctly, that only residents of the apartment building would be able to to access that, and then it would be a private service, trash service servicing that.
Yes,
Does that answer your question, Randy?
Not really, but I'll contact you tomorrow, Will.
okay.
All right.
Okay, I see Stacy, your hand is raised again.
Yes, the future housing, these are going to be individual homes. You guys are going to seek tax credits on those, I'm assuming. Will they be for sale or are they going to be rented homes?
Well, so Stacy, they will be for sale, single family owner occupied homes. Generally there could be a tax credit. There's a Neighborhood Preservation Act credit that gives you about $40,000 towards the building of a new home, but those are on a lottery basis, and the award of those isn't very reliable. There's also the Community Development Administration of the City of St. Louis has a notice of funding availability, also known as NOFA. And what they'll do in areas, and the West End qualifies, is subsidize the building of a home, and it can still be retained as a market rate sale. So let's say that it costs $475,000 to totally develop a 2,400 square foot home. Well, maybe it'll only sell for $325,000. So they provide, through community development block grant money, $150,000 gap financing in order for the developer to build that home. And it's worked out. Adam is an expert at that process. I've built a few houses with him, and he's built at least a dozen houses utilizing that program. It's a competitive program, but Adam's really good at it, and he's generally awarded a number of those every year. And that's a way that we can build high quality market rate homes in the neighborhood. And that's one incentive that I'm aware of. I would imagine with some of the CARES Act money, there might be some other incentives that can occur in this area. I'm not familiar with that. Perhaps Alderperson Clark Hubbard could opine on that, but I think that we could get this done utilizing existing resources that we're aware of. And we have no intention of owning and renting single family homes. It's a very small part of what we've done in the past, and it's becoming an ever smaller part of what we do. It's really nice to have these neighbors for stability purposes, honestly.
Okay. Have you considered your lot size also? So
Yeah,
homes won't be-
yeah. I cut you off again. I'm sorry.
No, I just want to make sure that we're not going to start stacking homes on top of one another
Yeah,
again.
these will be fully conforming lot.
Like 45, 60 foot wide. What do we?
So, yeah, I mean, so the city of St. Louis's minimum lot requirement is about 4,000 square feet. So say if we shot for a 4,000 square foot lot, and the depth of what is available there is probably around 115 to 120 feet deep. So, if you divide the 115 by 4,000 square feet, that gives you about a 35 foot wide lot, which is pretty consistent with what's in the existing neighborhood, if not a little bit wider. We build really nice 2-story, 2,000 square foot homes on 35 foot wide lots all over the city and St. Louis County. So that would likely be where it would be. And you would also, we would comply with the city's side yard setbacks, which their minimum is a total of 10 feet. So, 5 and 5 or 6 and 4. And that 2,000 square foot house is about 22 feet wide. So, if you've got 35 feet and a 22 foot wide house, 13 foot left over divided by 2 is, 6.5 feet on each side, which I think gives a pretty good side yard setback and good distance in between the houses.
And sometimes you'll have 4 feet on one side and 9 on the other, so that you can accommodate a driveway, and that your neighbor on the other side will have that 9-foot driveway. So you've got that, 13 feet between the houses, no matter what.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Good questions. Let's see, Emmett, I see your hand raised.
How's everybody doing? Thank you, Will and Christina. Hey, I have two things, quick. One was in the chat, so you can ignore that 'cause I'm asked now. What is your plan B for the single family, fee simple home? That lot, that area there that's reserved for that. If for some or any reason that the single family homes do not get developed, what's your plan B for the use of those sections of the lots?
I guess the plan B is to continue to maintain the green space that's there. Certainly, we'd prefer to build homes there, and we would be pursuing that until such time as that happens.
Okay, so when you redevelop that, because that's currently surface parking lot, correct?
Uh-huh.
At least on the Bartmer side.
Yes.
So you're planning on first before the homes are built, making that a green space. That's your initial first phase of that,
Well,
right? Is that what you're
Yeah.
saying?
So Emmett, I don't think all 13 houses will be built at once. It'll probably happen in 2 to 3 house increments. So once that first increment happens, I suspect that we would start doing some infrastructure, sewer work and other things, which would destroy that driveway, that asphalt area to begin with.
Yeah, okay, so it'll be green space until then. So then you're saying that you don't really have any plans other than housing or green space, correct?
Yeah, we're not planning on building another apartment building or anything like that.
Okay, and then I just had a little comment. Can we go back to the plan for, can we go back to that plan that shows the allocated parking spaces and the trash enclosure, if you don't mind? And I'm not trying to be difficult or anything. I just wanted to talk to you about this part because, we've had concerns on, for the neighbors on Horton as far as negative impacts on quality of life, right, from the beginning. Is there any way that I've never put the trash enclosure on that side of the site just because of the concerns previously? Is there any other way that you can maybe move that enclosure where the loading dock is? Do you have any room for that? Or is it a reason why you put that enclosure back on the western edge of that site versus where the loading dock is? Is there some type of right of way, or is it, is there a specific
Proximity to the
reason,
building was
Christina?
really the driver of that. So people don't have to walk as far to take the trash out. And a little bit out of the way of the traffic flow. But it does not need to be there.
Yeah,
So that's
I
pretty
think that we
flexible.
could study other spots for it to go, but I will say that's really close to where that alley that goes between Bartmer and Hamilton is. And the trash truck for the city of St. Louis picks up 9 to 12 dumpsters on that stretch of alley every day. So I think it's probably the most appropriate space for it, but if it's not, we're open to finding a more appropriate spot. I just, for the AD accessible unit, they can walk or wheel right out to it. It just makes a lot of sense. And that's a lower intensity parking area. And we did that by design to kind of shield the parking needs from the neighbors. You've got the visitor there, which is, that's there. And then you've got the ADA accessible parking, but it's really kind of shielded from the neighbors.
Okay, well, and that can be easily changed. Nothing that's going to the movement of that location of that specific, item where the dumpsters are, right? Just in case you have any, if anybody has any concerns, right? So you can easily move that to any different area of that site where that parking lot is, right? Correct?
I don't know that you could. It's probably in the best spot because let's think about articulating a fire truck through there if a dumpster's right there. Or should we have that dumpster right next to the future infill housing? I don't know. I think that it's probably in a really good spot, but we're open to learning more. And as we go through the whole process with the design, detailed design, I think we'll get to the exact location. as Christina said, this is schematic design, which is required in order to do zoning and to do the historic credits to figure out if we're even going to move forward.
All right, thank you.
I think that's a good point, Emmett. And the nice thing about trashing, if being in an enclosure, you know, it might be worth Will and team to maybe talk to that neighbor right there, and maybe it's a slightly higher fence on the neighbor side or something that could alleviate that concern. So
Mhm.
good point. I have a question in the chat from Khatib. How long is your commitment to remain as property manager? We sort of talked about that already, but if at some point you decide to relinquish that responsibility, what options will the tenants and resident stakeholders have to have input on who and what the new and how the new manager is identified?
Well, that's a good question. I think there's certainly is a vested interest on our part to find the best quality property manager we could have. And I know from people's lived experience, they don't always observe that. So I recognize that. But from my perspective, I want the best property manager. So God forbid something happens to me where I can't physically do it anymore. I've got a team of redundancy in my office. So my heirs, if I drop off the face of the earth, I would think that my organization will continue going. And we've got some redundancy built in. So I don't have any intention of relinquishing that control. I mean, to have a decent property manager, it's 8% of the rents. And then you're getting charged for a bunch of other stuff. So I just assume have those resources dedicated to my property and not share those with the property manager's other 50 clients. So it's, I don't know. I can't reconcile this. I've been doing this for 23 years and we've always managed our own property. So I can't really relate to that. But certainly if something were to happen, I would imagine that tenants would voice their concern and they would articulate it to the property manager, the incumbent property manager, and management and ownership.
Great. One more question in the chat, and then Justin, I'll see your hand, so we'll get to you right after that. Question on any ballpark as to how much the units will rent for, and what has happened price-wise to the units of your other properties.
We have had increases in all of our rents as they've come up for renewal the last year and a half. Our insurance costs has not doubled, but it's come really close to doubling. Property taxes are, they've gone up by about probably a little bit less than inflation, honestly. Utilities have gone up. MSD has really gone up in a lot of these non-metered accounts that we have some 4 families that are non-metered. So we pass those costs on. Now, this will be a higher cost rent than most properties in the neighborhood, most if not all, I would imagine. The costs to construct have gone up tremendously, and we already priced that into some of our estimates. But I would say that an efficiency unit in here might be close to $1,000.
Gotcha. Okay.
Where
Justin?
we have a building in the neighborhood that has 1-bedroom units that are 7-something, and they're all renovated units, but our entry point into that property, the cost to get into that property were a lot lower than what the costs are today. But I will say the utilities on these will probably be $100 or more less per month than my other property in the neighborhood.
Great. Justin?
Thank you, Jay. I got a question. I see you all got that nice green space up there in the upper right-hand corner on that layout plan. I was wondering if we can get like a beer garden and a beer garden and like in the warmer months, can we get a community garden that's maybe possibly managed by your tenant association or a combination of your tenant association and other great neighbors here in the neighborhood? But the beer garden, I don't know. We don't have to just find somebody come pop up with good beer.
Well, Justin, in true fashion here, that'll be upon the tenants association to figure out, and they're not established yet, so I can't answer that for you. But I do like the ideas that you're coming up with.
All righty, I appreciate it.
Yeah.
All right. I saw someone else. Stacy again.
Hey, it's me again. Hey, we just got rid of some illegal beer gardens in the area, so no more beer gardens for a while. Sir, what are the chances of, say, WashU coming in and renting out your property? I've seen them do it with other projects. If I'm pronouncing it wrong, sorry, the winery up on Skinkers at Bardenheimer Winery, they swept in and rented out the entire thing. Your property, I'm just curious though, is that an option for you if it did occur, or they made a proposal to you?
I don't, I'd have to listen to any opportunity that would come. They've not reached out to me. I've reached out to WashU in the past to see if they've had any interest in this particular pocket of the neighborhood, and they've supported some of the endeavors of the West End community, but they're really, really smart about not getting involved in giving opinions on things before they come to a reality. Would I be opposed to WashU being interested? Probably not, but I don't think this is as close to their footprint as Bardenheimer is, and that's even pretty far away from their footprint. And I think that we're going to be able to make this on our own without their involvement. And there could be a situation where they've got 4 buildings with some catastrophe, or they're getting renovated and they need short-term options, and they reach out to quality property managers. And I suspect that if they were to reach out to a property manager in the neighborhood, they would reach out to us, because we do, I'm gonna maybe bragging, but we do a really good job of managing our properties, and we take care of our tenants the best we can. And we make mistakes every single day, some days more than others, but fortunately we learn from most of them, and we get up the next day and try to do a good job. So I suspect that we probably won't have an interaction with WashU, but I would not rule out working with them if there was an opportunity either.
Okay, great. I see one more question from Khatib, and then I want to close up questions here pretty quick and let Will and his team go and have a sort of internal discussion here. So if anyone has any further questions, please raise your hand now. Talked a little bit about your contractor at the very beginning that you worked with. If the DRC was to approve the project tonight, how would you utilize or would you utilize minority contractors with this project, for this project?
Well, we absolutely utilize minority contractors, both documented as minority and people who just happen to be of a minority. Adam has been really, really successful in meeting his goals, where a lot of times there are minority goals, but they're not met. Adam Roberts has met and exceeded these goals for the better part of, I'm not gonna say a decade, but how long you been doing this, Adam? Full time?
Close to a decade.
Okay. And he brags to me about that. He's been able to get some really great people to work on his team of development.
Yeah, and not only, obviously it started out, working on subsidized projects because there are the goals, but, within the market rate developments that we do, we use the same guys because we've got the relationship with them. We've vetted them. They, perform well and are just great to work with. So it's not only the subsidized things, but these are just regular subs that we work with. We work to get K&K certified as a woman-owned business through the airport. We also worked with the city of St. Louis Community Development Administration for her to receive a Section 3 certification, which means that she's a low income business per the HUD definition, or can speak to that. He's familiar with that certification. So, it's not only hiring folks, but, we also work with them to get them certified and help them through the paperwork process. So we've got a good long history with that.
Fabulous. All right. Any further questions? If you haven't raised your hand, feel free to just speak up. All righty. Well, hearing no further questions, I want to thank Will, Adam, Christina again for your time here tonight, and the presentation, and sticking around for answering all these questions. We're gonna let you go. We're gonna have a little bit of an internal discussion, and we'll be in contact with you all tomorrow, but really appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you, everyone, for your involvement and interest in the community. It's a lot of the reason, if not the most important part of the reason why we're interested in doing this development, is we have neighbors around us who care. While it's not easy when you have neighbors who care, we wouldn't be here if there weren't neighbors who care. So thank you very much.
Thank you. And everyone else, please stick around just for a couple more minutes, and then we want to hear back directly from community members, and then we're going to close the session and have just DRC members stick around for a little bit longer. So let's see, has everyone left yet, Monique, from their end? I want to make sure everyone feels free to speak freely and give their thoughts. Okay, so if anyone has any thoughts on the development, how they're feeling about it, if you still have questions, we DRC members would love to hear it, especially if you are a neighbor that lives near the property. And I will say as well, oh, go ahead, Brenda. Yes, please.
Okay, so I came into the meeting close to almost 7 o'clock. Well, actually about 6:50. So I didn't receive an email, and I sent, I think it was Monique, my email address to notify me when the next meeting. So I was thinking that since I didn't receive an email, even through the West End, the WIN Association, that maybe they canceled the meeting or something like that. I'm just, I get frustrated with lack of communication.
I hear you, and I do apologize that we didn't get that out to you. We did try to send it out via WEN and with flyers and via our own email distribution network. So if those methods didn't get to you, I do apologize, and we do strive to constantly improve and do better. So we'll need to double check to make sure we have your correct contact info.
I directly sent it to Monique, and if it really wasn't for my neighbors that sent it, text me, I would have never knew. That's what I'm saying. Like, I just think, this ain't the first time. I mean, this ain't the second time. This is probably like the third or fourth time, and I just, it just frustrates me, the lack of communication. And I'm sure I'm not the only one that it frustrates about the lack of communication. That's the only thing. I mean, I was planning on coming, I just didn't hear the beginning of the meeting. So that's, I just think that's unprofessional, and just, it's upsetting.
I do apologize, and we're happy to, if you have any additional questions, happy to try and answer them now. And of course, we can send the presentation to you for you to review as well.
Okay, I have a question.
Go ahead.
This is Brandy. It's still a no for me. And I say that because I've been there 15 years. For the past 15 years, he has not had that building for 15 years, no. But it's me constantly cleaning the alley. We have no help. I don't see any coming because he put 58 units instead of 66. That's not a big difference. That's still a bunch of riffraff. I hear all the numbers that's being stated. Yeah, I know how that can change in a second. I can see it changing. It makes me want to sell my home or rent it out because I don't want to be next door to 58 units. The trash is on the side with no one there. And I'm picking up trash daily. So with 58 units with the gate and the wind still blowing, it's still coming over the gate. I'm still going to be picking up. And I'm scared that when he start digging, am I going to get any rodents? That usually happens when you start doing diggings, especially on a building that's been vacant for a little while. I've never had a bug. I've never had a mouse. I don't want them. I don't want you to start digging so much on the concrete that now my foundation is cracking up. And then everyone else is still like, oh yeah, we got 58 units, but my house is falling apart. Everybody's real excited about what's coming, but it's not next door to them. Put it next door to someone that's excited, because I'm pretty sure he would not want 58 units on the side of his home. Now, I can see if it has some amenities. It doesn't even have amenities. I don't see anyone want to give market rate rent for no amenities. And around the corner is beautiful.
There were some amenities. They're going to have a fitness. They're going to have pickleball courts. And there were a few others. There was a slide on that as well. So there will be some amenities. I totally understand the frustrations of the trash, and I do get the worries about having to constantly be the steward of the alley and try to do that, and your worries that this might exacerbate I can't say that word those problems. So is there I know you're against the project, but would there be anything that the development team could do to help mitigate those concerns for you, aside from just not doing the project?
They're not doing anything now. So that's just like when you meet someone, their first impression is something, isn't it? If you're not doing anything now and no one is even in the building, what are you going to do when you have tenants? It's evident you're not going to do anything. Right now, talk is very cheap to me, because you're talking, that's a good game. Yeah, we're going to do this, we're going to do that. You're not doing anything now, and you don't even have a tenant. So you're telling me when you get 58 tenants, you're going to stand up now? You're not standing up and you have 0. It doesn't make sense to me. If you're not doing anything now with 0 tenants, because I constantly call, can send you every email, pictures of how it look and everything else. Oh, we're coming. They come usually a couple of days later, but I've already cleaned up the alley, so I can show you the before and the after. And so what is it going to be when it's 58 tenants? So if that's 58 people, if they have a spouse, because you're not going to be able to control who moves in somebody's house. You're not. That's just, that's impossible to say, oh, we're going to have 58 people. They're not going to have anybody. We're going to have just the ones that's on the lease. No way. Is our homes going to start getting broken into? Or are we going to have all types? It's just, it's a whole bunch that the answers will not be resolved today. And it won't even be resolved if he built it and it's beautiful. I doubt it, though. First impression is very, very impressionable to me. And it's still going to be a no from me. I'm not sure about who's across the street, who's up the street. We already see it from his friends that got the building across the street. It's horrible.
Okay. Thank you very much for those thoughts. Walter, I see you've had your hand raised for a while. There you go.
Okay, great. Thank you. Good evening, everyone. To the lady who did not receive, we sent out the email to over 400 people on the email distribution for the West End Neighbors Google groups. If you didn't receive it, please send me an email. Put my email in the chat, and we'll make sure you get it, or you can check your spam box. Additionally, we posted this meeting to Nextdoor and Facebook. I'm personally, for those of you who don't know me, I'm president of the West End Neighbors Association, and from what I've heard from Mr. Will Lieberman, I'm in favor of this project. I think it'd be an enhancement to our community. It'll eliminate vacancies and the concerns I'm hearing about, even the last one there. I mean, I don't expect him to do a lot right now because he doesn't have the revenue. And what he's talking about is once he gets his building occupied and gets revenue coming in, I think he will. And from the renderings, this would be a plus to our community. Overall, I realize neighbors around have concerns, but I've seen other apartments near Horton. And boy, this guy's come up with a better plan for his trash management. I look at the buildings on the other side. I think that's west. You've got the apartments over there, and I see trash out there all the time. And boy, I wish we could get on all those folks to do a better job. But from what I'm seeing here, the plans and from the questions that were raised in the presentations, I can see where this is going to be a positive overall to our community. And that's my input. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Walter. Anyway, Brenda, I see your hand raised.
Okay, so actually, I'm thinking about like what Brandy was saying. To me, it's not that I don't want to see nothing there. It's not that, but to me, I don't know. This is probably like our fourth or third meeting with Will and his team. Okay, to me, he hasn't really made a difference because first he went from 66 units to 58 units, and then he's adding houses around it, or planning on adding houses around it, or whatever. So to me, if he was considering Brandy feelings and the other neighbors and the trash, I think he would have took that drawing and took the trash and moved it maybe on the other side somewhere inside where like the trash people trucks come and pick up, somewhere on the parking lot rather than have it on the side. If he was thinking of Brandy and the other neighbors. And I don't see the difference of too much of him changing. I mean, I understand he's looking at his bottom dollar, but he's not considering he's not considering us in a sense, because he went from 66, he just reduced it to 58, and then he added some more houses around it. I don't see where he's compromising in a sense, And like I said, if he was considering Brandy, and then another thing I was thinking about, if he has other properties and he managed the properties, or he has a property management company, they can simply come over to this property, check on this property, pick up trash, and even though it's vacant, it don't have to be nobody living there. If he already paid someone his other property to manage his property, they can drive over here weekly and check on this property. I don't see the difference. I don't know. I don't know.
Well, maybe he can move something next door to Walter. Then Walter think it's a great idea. Because right now I don't.
Because trash. Yeah, because it's trash in the alley. Because people come from the alley. They're driving. The neighbors, they're coming from the alley, from their garage. So I don't think he really considered Brandy's feelings or either the neighbor's feelings, because I think he would have took that diagram, the drawing, and he would have moved that trash can somewhere on that parking lot.
Well, I think he did say that he was willing to look at other potential locations for that trash enclosure. So if that's something that we all feel is something that would be absolutely required, then I think we can certainly relay that to him, and we could make that a condition if we decide to support the project. So I do want to be conscious of people's time. We're already at 8 o'clock, so we've been at this for an hour and a half already, and DRC members all need a chance to powwow a little bit too. So I want to give any more community members a chance to give thoughts if you haven't already. So Trina, Tony, Sheila, Stacy, David, any additional thoughts?
I'm sorry, I do
Lisa.
have a question.
Sure, go ahead.
Good evening, everyone. I'm noticing that it says at the bottom of my screen, 23 participants. And I know you were saying, Jake, that you guys, need to wrap this up so the DRC committee could meet. So is this our final community meeting, or are we going to meet again? Because I think we need more than 23 participants to really come to a decision here. And I'm just curious, because I know it's a lot of things that's taken place, and there's usually a few making a decision for a lot, and we really need to stop that. We need to start really, really, really trying to reach people and get them involved, because everyone has a voice and they need to be heard.
Totally agree. The goal is tonight to vote on the proposal and make a decision on whether the Development Review Committee will support that or not. And of course, neighbors are free to continue to engage in the city process as that goes forward. I will say that we have made we have tried to make as strong as effort as possible to reach as many voices as we can. As you said before, this is our fourth meeting with Will and his team, and we have engaged many more folks than the folks that were just able to attend tonight's call. And we additionally sent out a survey to get people's thoughts as well. So we pass that information along. So I wish we could get everyone to come to a meeting and engage every time we do something like this. But logistically, that's hard to do. But we did try to reach as many people as possible during this process. And we will continue, regardless of what happens, continue to update people on the process if it moves forward or not. So.
Okay, but my main question is there a final decision being made tonight with the DRC committee?
Yes, that is the goal, to vote and have a final decision tonight, at least on the phase one part of the project, which is just the school building.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, Jake, Stacy here. Can I just say one thing?
Sure.
To the madam, her concerns about her building before the construction, if the project goes through before construction begins, I would suggest reaching out to them and possibly having a little inspection with her people. So if you're getting cracks in your foundation from the demo work, that they can take a look at it before, get some documentation, pictures on your path also. So when you do have these things, you can present it to them. So if it's a result of their actions, their construction, that they can remedy those for you. And I was wondering about the trash also. Is this trash being produced from people loitering on the property because it's not secure? Or is it, since the building is not occupied, where's the trash coming from?
Correct, because the building is not secured, and he usually have some guys come and throw trash away. So people have been seeing them do that. So others have been following. This has been going on.
Gotcha. So it's a direct result of they're emptying out the building, but they're not cleaning up as they are getting rid of materials.
No, his people are doing what they should do. So it is definitely people that's just illegally dumping, but that's just not it. Not just the dumping. He has people that come and cut the grass. They leave that everywhere. The shrubs, the tree branches that they cut down, everything is left. And this is from people that he hired. So if that is being done with 0 tenants, what is it going to look like with 58?
Okay, and if I may suggest to you also, hit up the Citizen Service Bureau and let them know about the problems that are being produced. If they're, even though it's his property, if they're leaving that stuff out there, it's an eyesore, report it. So that the city can get on him to maintain his property and keep it, in a more neat fashion.
Okay. Sir, not only have I reported, not only have I sent pictures, not only have I sent emails, and again, it's me out there picking up. So I'm not sure who is his friend in the city of Service Bureau downtown, but nothing gets done.
Okay.
So I will take pictures of my property and my foundation. All that sounds real swifty and good. So if something occurs, then I have to hire a lawyer, me, to get stuff settled. Because again, If nothing is getting done with 0 people, you're not gonna tell me 58 people something gonna get better. It's not.
Gotcha.
All right. Lisa, I see your hand up.
Yeah, I was just gonna say too, to Miss Brandy and Miss Brenda, and with respect to the illegal dumping, there is money now within the our 5th District Police Department. They used to be called the Trash Task Force, but they have a fancy new name now. But they'll come out and put a camera, and they are taking names and passing out fines, and seriously, so I would do that. And even if it's Will's people, you know, they'll get fined as well. And so, you know, I think if you're taking pictures and all those things, and I hear you saying you're calling CSB, I think it's great. Or you also sending that information to Will as well, so that he can make, because if he's doing it or his people are doing it, I would hope that he would be responsive. But I'm not, you know, here to defend Will. Just making a suggestion. I know the Trash Task Force is working very well in other parts of the community, and they're very active here in the 5th District. I'll just make my comments from respect to the last meeting we attended until today. I think the presentation today addressed most, if not all, of the concerns from the previous meeting with respect to a size of, you know, the number of units, trash, maintenance, you know, landscaping. So all the questions that I remember from the previous meeting seem to be addressed in the presentation this evening. And the pictures, I do think were great. And I realize they're just pictures, but I can only go on what I see. And I am going to choose to have faith that they're making the investment and they're willing to come in here and try to improve this community. So I would also join Walter in, you know, voting yes. That's just my personal opinion based on what I have observed to date. But you know, no disrespect to the people who actually live on the block. I also understand, you know, your concern. But those are my comments. And thanks for dropping that in the chat, Shameen.
Great. Thank you, Lisa. And Andrew had a question about what is the weight of our opinions actually having moving forward or not with this process. So that is a great question. And a little bit about how this process could work going forward. So as they mentioned in the presentation, they will have to move forward with a zoning application, either to rezone the property or to get a variance to do the project. So the city will look for neighborhood support for before they grant that request. So, and there will be a public hearing on that that the city will hold. So we will write a letter, either yay or nay, opposing or approving of the project, and that will be submitted to the city. And then neighbors could also have the opportunity to speak at that hearing if possible, if so desired, I should say. So that's sort of how this is an advisory committee. Ultimately, we don't have any legal authority to, you know, make the city do anything one way or the other. But we are giving our opinion on the project, if that makes sense. Great. Okay. Any last minute comments from community members? And then I'm going to hold on to DRC members for just a few minutes more.
Yeah, I have one last comment. This gentleman, I've looked at one of his properties that he owns in our community, and it is above average. And it lends me to believe that he's the type of person that we could trust to develop in our community. I mean, he's proven himself. He's got a property, I think it's 8 units, very well maintained, far above average in this community.
I like to challenge that, because numerous times this summer I've seen heroin addicts getting high on the steps, nodding while women and their children cross the street.
Yes, sir.
He not only that, and nothing against, I'm not taking what your lived experience was, Walter. I want to say that first. But my lived experience, and also living around the corner from this gentleman, I also noticed that it took him an extremely long time to board up some windows after a fire. Also happened at this nice property on Goodfellow between Cates and Russell Park on Cabinet Place. Not Cabinet Place, but on Cabinet and Goodfellow. So this is the things that I've noticed. And like I said, I'm not against you, but when there's something going on in our community that impacts mothers and children where they can't walk on the side of the street safely and carefully because people are getting high and whatever else they're doing, that's not the type of quality of life that we recommend or want. And I'm not suggesting that you do want that, but I just wanted to share that, ladies and gentlemen. So
Thank you, Justin.
thank you.
Thank you.
As well.
So Justin, do you have an opinion on this project, or do you have any worries, concerns?
I got two things, and it was something I think we've done for other projects, and I've heard you share this today with Brandy, the homeowner that lives next door to the school. Could we do a conditional, okay, if they rezone and put that trash can somewhere else to where, because looking at that diagram, it shows that they can come off the side of Bartman onto the parking lot, and that will eliminate her concern and any possible future concerns for dumping. And secondly, I would like to know, hey, Jake, is this building more than like 50,000 square feet?
I believe so.
Yeah. So I would also like, if for conditional use, if they also implement the building performance standards that former Alderwoman Navarro and Kyra Spencer put in place, that says every building in the side of the city of St. Louis that's over 50,000 square feet has to be solar ready. And that doesn't mean that they have to put the solar panels on top, but it does say they have to be solar ready after a certain type of square footage. And last but not least, and you can tell me if this is something for DRC. I really don't appreciate people not being transparent with us, because they did not tell us that they applied. And I could be wrong, I've only been to 2 meetings, but I've never heard them say that them themselves applied for historic designation. So while they were talking, I went and looked up and I found the application and read it. It told me it was done by Christina, and that's why I put the thing in the message. So, and I can't fully put that on them. So in our application moving forward, can we ask them to provide any application now or anytime during this process that they apply for any historic, state, federal, local designation, that we also be, that is also shared with the DRC, a part of their application process through any part of this process? Because
yes.
Thank you, Jake. I'm sorry to say, Jake.
No, all good points. And yes, we can certainly add some provisions. I will say that they did inform the community of the historic status at the in-person meeting in November. But we did go a little off script from our usual format for this presentations, which usually has all that information up front. So I apologize for that, and we'll make sure to revamp that for future proposals. So
thank you, Jake.
Absolutely. Okay, I'm going to say thank you very much for spending your evening with us. Really appreciate your time and commitment to the neighborhood and giving us your thoughts. The presentation will be uploaded to the DRC website, on Cornerstone's website, as well as a link to this meeting for you to share with neighbors and anyone you would like. And then please, we'll make sure to disseminate the decision and letter afterwards to everyone, so that everyone knows what's going on, and any possible rezoning hearing dates. We'll make sure to keep everyone informed as well. So really appreciate it. And if I could have DRC members just hang on for just a couple minutes more, I'd appreciate it.
All right, thank you, guys.
Thank you, Emmett.
Have a good night.
You as well. Okay, let's see. Beautiful, beautiful. Okay, it's just us now, guys. It's just us.